August 7, 1942. 0214 hours. Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands. 1st American Marines of 1st Marine Division waded ashore at Beach Red, carrying weapons that would fundamentally challenge Japanese tactical doctrine. Among M1 Garands and Browning automatic rifles, select Marines carried Winchester Model 12 shotguns. Pump-action weapons with devastating capability Japanese military planners had never anticipated. Through pre-dawn darkness, Marines advanced inland from landing beaches, encountering first Japanese defensive positions near Lunga River. What happened in those initial engagements would demonstrate catastrophic miscalculation in Japanese military planning. Imperial Japanese Army had prepared for rifle combat at distance. They'd trained for bayonet charges and sword work at close range. They had not prepared for American shotguns capable of firing as fast as soldier could work pump action. Mechanical reality that would shatter Japanese tactical assumptions across Pacific. The 2,200 Japanese defenders on Guadalcanal were about to discover American Marines had brought the Pacific weapons so effective in close combat that Germany had tried to have it banned from warfare in 1918. Winchester Model 12, with its ability to slam fire multiple shells in rapid succession, would prove particularly devastating in jungle warfare, cave fighting, and night combat characterizing Pacific theater. Mathematics of combat were about to change in ways Japanese planners could not have predicted. Technical specifications: Winchester Model 12 military load. Each shell contained 9 pellets of double-aught buckshot, .33 caliber lead pellets, 53.8 grains each. Marine could fire 6 shells in under 3 seconds using slam fire technique. In those 3 seconds, 54 projectiles would saturate target area. For comparison, Japanese soldier with bolt-action Type 38 or Type 99 rifle could fire approximately 10 to 15 aimed rounds per minute under ideal conditions. In same 3-second period, Winchester operator fired 54 projectiles. Japanese riflemen could fire perhaps 1 round, maybe 2 if already aimed and prepared. The disparity was not merely quantitative, but qualitative. Shotgun pellet spread to approximately 30 inches at combat ranges, 20 to 30 yards, creating pattern density that made precise aiming unnecessary in jungle warfare, where targets were fleeting glimpses through dense vegetation. Each pellet carried sufficient energy at 20 yards to penetrate 3/4 inch of pine board, U.S. Army Ordnance standard for approximating human tissue penetration. Multiple pellets striking targets simultaneously created devastating wounds far exceeding single rifle bullet. Psychological effect of being hit by multiple projectiles from single shot proved equally significant. Japanese soldiers who survived engagements with shotgun-armed Marines consistently reported uniquely terrifying nature of weapon. Winchester Model 12 entered World War II with reputation already established in trenches of France. During World War I, American forces had employed earlier shotgun models, primarily Winchester Model 1897 and Model 1912, with such effectiveness that on September 15, 1918, German government filed diplomatic protest through Swiss channels. The protest, preserved in U.S. State Department archives, claimed shotguns violated Article 23(e) of Hague Convention by causing unnecessary suffering. Full text of German protest, translated from German, transmitted through Swiss diplomatic channels. The German government protests against the use of shotguns by the American Army and calls attention to the fact that, according to the law of war, every prisoner found to have in his possession such guns or ammunition belonging thereto forfeits his life. German military authorities argued that shotgun wounds were particularly cruel, that multiple pellets caused wounds difficult to treat, that buckshot violated principles of humane warfare established at Hague Conventions of 1899 and 1907. Secretary of State Robert Lansing's response was unequivocal and threatening. United States rejected German protest entirely. Lansing's reply, dated September 19, 1918, stated, "The United States government takes exception to the protests of the German government regarding the use of shotguns by American forces, and does not conceive that there is any basis for such protest in the rules of civilized warfare. Furthermore, the United States government is prepared to make known to the German government that it will take action of the most stringent nature regarding any German violations against American prisoners carrying or having carried shotguns." Translation: any execution of American prisoners for carrying shotguns would result in immediate reprisals against German prisoners. Germany never executed American prisoners for shotgun possession. Shotgun use continued throughout remaining weeks of World War I. This diplomatic exchange established legal precedent. Shotguns were legitimate weapons of war under international law, regardless of their devastating close-range effects. By 1942, when Winchester Model 12 went to Pacific, legal question was settled. Weapons effectiveness in trench warfare 1917 to 1918 provided blueprint for deployment in jungle and cave warfare 1942 to 1945. Before we continue with how slam fire capability delivered 54 projectiles in 3 seconds and why Japanese cave defenders reported metallic shrieking of ricocheting buckshot as uniquely terrifying, if you're fascinated by these stories of specialized weapons that defeated enemy tactical doctrine through devastating close-range firepower, subscribe and hit notification bell. We publish deeply researched military history documentaries every week that bring you the weapons innovations that change combat forever. Now back to 1942, and the shotgun that Germany tried to ban, but America brought to Pacific anyway. Model 12, introduced 1912 as a civilian hunting weapon, had evolved significantly by 1942. Military version, designated M12 trench gun, features specific modifications. Barrel, 20-inch cylinder bore compared to 26 to 30 inches on civilian models. Cylinder bore meant no choke constriction. Shot pattern spread immediately upon leaving barrel, maximizing spread at combat ranges. Heat shield, perforated metal ventilated heat shield covering barrel. Purpose, protect operator's hand from barrel heat during rapid fire. Allow air circulation to cool barrel. Bayonet lug, standard M1917 bayonet lug attached to barrel, allowing attachment of 17-inch blade bayonet. While rarely used in practice, shotgun was close-range weapon. Bayonet charges were rifle tactics. Lug's presence demonstrated military's commitment to adapting civilian weapon to military standards. Sling swivels, military sling attachments for carrying weapon. Finish, parkerized phosphate coating rather than civilian blued finish, providing corrosion resistance in humid tropical environments. Most critically, trigger disconnector absence. This was not accidental feature, but intentional design choice carried over from civilian model. Winchester engineers had designed Model 12, so holding down trigger while working pump action would fire weapon as rapidly as operator could cycle it. Mechanism worked as follows. Traditional pump action shotgun featured trigger disconnector, mechanical device that required operator to release trigger after each shot before weapon could fire again. Model 12 lacked this disconnector. Trigger could remain depressed throughout firing sequence. Slam fire technique. Operator held trigger down continuously while rapidly pumping action. Each time bolt closed, chambering new shell. Hammer released automatically, firing shell immediately. Rate of fire limited only by operator's physical ability to cycle action. Typically 5 to 6 rounds in under 3 seconds for experienced operator. While civilian shooters rarely use this feature, hunting did not require such rapid fire. Military trainers recognized combat potential immediately. Slam fire transformed pump action shotgun from deliberate aim weapon into close-range area saturation weapon. Precisely what jungle warfare and cave combat required. Imperial Japanese Army had built Pacific defensive strategy on several core assumptions documented in field manuals and training materials captured throughout war. According to U.S. War Department Technical Manual TME 30 to 480, Handbook on Japanese Military Forces 1944, Japanese doctrine emphasized 2 primary tactical advantages. 1. Night fighting, yasun. 2. Close combat, hakyokusen, literally white blade battle. Japanese distinguish between multiple types of night operations. Kisha, night surprise attack. Small units infiltrating enemy positions under cover darkness, using stealth and blade weapons to create chaos before main assault. Kyoshu, night force attack. Battalion or regimental strength assault launched in darkness, relying on shock and mass to overwhelm defenders. Infantry training devoted extensive hours to night operations. Movement in darkness without artificial light. Japanese doctrine forbade flashlight use, considering its sign of weakness and fear. Silent infiltration techniques, including specialized crawling methods and noise discipline. Hand-to-hand combat with bayonet, sword, and knife. Navigation by stars and terrain features. The assumption, validated in China campaigns 1937 to 1941 and early Pacific victories 1941 to 1942, was that night combat negated American advantages in firepower and technology. When combat moved into darkness, Japanese doctrine asserted these advantages disappeared. Battle reduced to primitive fundamentals. Individual courage, physical endurance, willingness to close with enemy. Japanese training manuals explicitly stated American forces were weak in close combat, dependent on mechanical superiority. Captured training document, Japanese 38th Division, found Buna, New Guinea, January 1943. stated, "The American soldier is weak in spirit. He depends on machines and firepower rather than warrior spirit. When battle closes to bayonet range, American soldier seeks to retreat or surrender. Japanese soldiers' superior spirit and training will prevail in white blade battle." This belief was not merely propaganda, but fundamental to Japanese tactical planning throughout Pacific War. Fall of Singapore, February 15, 1942, had seemed to validate these assumptions completely. Japanese 25th Army, approximately 36,000 troops, under General Tomoe Yamashita, defeated British Commonwealth forces, approximately 85,000 troops, through aggressive night attacks and close combat. British defensive positions, designed to resist conventional frontal assault, proved vulnerable to night infiltration. Japanese forces repeatedly penetrated British lines under cover of darkness, creating chaos in rear areas. British and Australian troops, many inexperienced and poorly trained for jungle warfare, proved unable to effectively counter Japanese night tactics. When Singapore surrendered February 15, 1942, Winston Churchill called it worst disaster and largest capitulation in British military history. Philippines campaign, December 1941 to May 1942, reinforced Japanese confidence. American and Filipino forces under General Douglas MacArthur, despite fighting determined defensive campaign on Bataan Peninsula, eventually succumbed to Japanese pressure. While American forces demonstrated greater combat effectiveness than British at Singapore, they still failed to prevent Japanese tactical success through night attacks and infiltration. By August 1942, when Marines landed Guadalcanal, Japanese military held firm conviction. Americans, like other Western forces, could not match Japanese soldiers in close quarters battle. Night combat was Japanese advantage that could overcome American material superiority. Spirit and training would defeat firepower and technology. They were about to discover that Americans had brought weapons specifically designed to dominate close-range combat. Winchester Model 12 capable of firing 54 projectiles in 3 seconds. American invasion of Guadalcanal, August 7, 1942, marked first offensive operation against Japanese forces. Operation codenamed Watchtower, planned hastily in response to intelligence that Japanese were constructing airfield on Guadalcanal that would threaten Allied supply lines to Australia. 1st Marine Division's equipment manifests referenced riot-type shotguns in infantry battalions with ammunition supplies of buckshot and slug rounds, but did not specify exact quantities. Post-war estimates suggest approximately 150 to 200 shotguns were present with 1st Marine Division on Guadalcanal. Small percentage of division's 19,000 Marines, but concentrated in units expected to face close combat. Evidence confirms their presence and use from multiple sources. After-action reports mentioning shotgun effectiveness. Veteran accounts describing shotgun employment. Photographic evidence showing Marines with Model 12s. Japanese prisoners reporting encounters with many bullet guns or spray guns. First major test came during Battle of Tenaru, actually Illa River, American maps misidentified river. August 21, 1942, 0310 hours. Colonel Creighton Ichiki, 44 years old, veteran of China campaigns, led 916 men of Ichiki detachment in night assault across sandbar at river's mouth. This was exactly the type of close combat night attack Japanese doctrine prescribed. Assault launched in darkness, 0310 hours, complete darkness, no moon. Rapid movement to close with enemy before American firepower could be brought to bear. Reliance on shock, surprise, and hand-to-hand combat. Infiltration through multiple points rather than mass frontal assault. Ichiki was confident. His troops were elite infantry from 28th Infantry Regiment, veterans of China, Philippines, Guam. They had never been defeated. Intelligence reports, later proven wildly inaccurate, had told Ichiki that American forces on Guadalcanal were weak, demoralized, possibly preparing to evacuate. Ichiki planned to overwhelm Marine positions through aggressive night attack, capture airfield, be heroes of empire. Battle's outcome was catastrophic for Japanese forces. Of 916 attackers, approximately 800 were killed in single night. While Marine machine guns, water-cooled Browning M1917S, positions pre-registered on likely approach routes, and artillery, 75mm pack howitzers firing from pre-plotted positions, inflicted many casualties. Close-range fighting saw employment of shotguns in their intended role. Marine defensive positions along Illa River incorporated shotguns specifically for close-range defense. Machine guns provided primary firepower at ranges beyond 50 yards. Rifles engaged individual targets at medium range. Shotguns covered approaches where Japanese infantry might break through to positions. After-action reports from 1st Battalion. 1st Marines, holding positions along river. Noted, effectiveness of all available weapons in repelling assault, with specific mention of value of increased firepower at close range. Shotgun armed personnel proved particularly valuable when enemy close of ranges under 30 yards. Marine Corps Gazette article, December 1942, describing battle mentioned. In several instances, Japanese soldiers who penetrated our forward positions were engaged at ranges measured in feet rather than yards. Weapons providing multiple projectiles per shot proved decisive in these encounters. Japanese survivors, few were taken prisoner. Most who survived withdrew and died of wounds or starvation in following weeks. Reported American forces possessed guns that fired many bullets at once and created walls of metal that were impossible to penetrate. Model 12's effectiveness derived from specific technical characteristics optimized for close-range combat. According to U.S. Army Ordnance testing, conducted 1941 to 1943, military load specifications, 0.0 buckshot, 9 pellets per shell, each pellet .33 caliber, 8.38 millimeters diameter, each pellet 53.8 grains weight, 3.49 grams, total pellet weight per shell, 484 grains, 31.4 grams. Velocity, approximately 1,325 feet per second at muzzle, 404 meters per second. Energy at muzzle, approximately 188 foot-pounds per pellet, 1,692 foot-pounds total per shell. Penetration at 20 yards. Each pellet retains sufficient velocity, approximately 950 feet per second at 20 yards, to penetrate 3/4-inch pine board, standard used for approximating human tissue penetration. Multiple pellet strikes created devastating wounds, far exceeding single rifle bullet. Spread pattern was equally important. At 10 yards, approximately 8-inch diameter pattern, all pellets within circle. At 20 yards, approximately 15-inch diameter pattern. At 30 yards, approximately 30-inch diameter pattern. At 40 yards, approximately 40-inch diameter pattern, but pellet energy declining rapidly. Pattern density at combat ranges, 20 to 30 yards, created several tactical advantages. 1. Aiming precision unnecessary. Marine firing a torso-sized target at 25 yards with 20-inch spread pattern needed only point weapon in target's general direction. Spread pattern compensated for imprecise aiming under combat stress. 2. Moving targets easier to engage. Japanese soldier running through jungle at 20 yards presented fleeting target difficult to hit with rifle. Shotgun spread pattern increased probability of hitting moving target. 3. Multiple targets could be engaged. Single shotgun blast might hit multiple enemy soldiers if they were grouped together. Common occurrence in Japanese night attacks where troops moved in close formation. 4. Jungle vegetation less obstructive. Rifle bullet striking leaf or small branch might deflect significantly. Shotgun pattern with 9 pellets spread across 20 to 30 inches meant some pellets might pass through gaps in vegetation, even if others were deflected. Slam fire capability multiplied these advantages enormously. While no precise rate of fire measurements from World War II combat exist, post-war testing by U.S. military demonstrated experienced operators could fire 5 to 6 rounds in under 3 seconds using slam fire technique. Maximum rate of fire approximately 2 rounds per second, sustained for 6-round magazine capacity. Reloading required approximately 8 to 12 seconds for experienced operator to load 6 shells individually through loading port. Physical technique for slam fire: to press trigger and hold down, continuously pump action rearward sharply, ejecting spent shell, cocking hammer, drive action forward rapidly, chambering new shell from tubular magazine. As action closed and bolt locked, hammer automatically released. Firing shell immediately begins cycle again. Rate of fire limited by operator's physical strength and coordination. Pump action cycling required approximately 8 to 10 pounds of force. Rapid cycling generated significant recoil that operator had to control. Balance had to be maintained while cycling action rapidly. Improper technique caused muzzle to rise excessively, degrading accuracy. Comparison to other weapons available to Marines 1942 to 1943. M1 Garand rifle, semi-automatic, 8-round M-block clip. Rate of fire approximately 40 to 50 aimed rounds per minute, 0.67 to 0.83 rounds per second. Superior range effective to 500 plus yards in penetration, but single projectile per shot. M1903 Springfield rifle, bolt action, 5-round magazine, rate of fire approximately 10 to 15 aimed rounds per minute, 0.17 to 0.25 rounds per second. Highly accurate at long range, but slow rate of fire. Browning automatic rifle, bar fully automatic, 20-round magazine, rate of fire 500 to 650 rounds per minute. 8.3 to 10.8 rounds per second cyclic rate, but practical rate of fire much lower due to magazine changes and barrel heating. Effective to 600 plus yards, but heavy, 19.4 pounds loaded, and ammunition consumption high. Winchester Model 12 with slam fire. 6 shells in under 3 seconds equals 54 pellets in 3 seconds. At ranges under 30 yards, this provided devastating volume of fire comparable to or exceeding automatic weapons, with added advantage of spread pattern. Marines developed specific techniques for employing Model 12 based on combat experience Guadalcanal through early 1943. Training emphasized several key tactics. 1. Ground-level firing against infiltrators. Japanese night infiltration tactics often involved crawling through tall grass or dense undergrowth. Marines learned to fire shotguns at ground level when defending against crawling infiltrators. Buckshot striking hard ground created a ricochet effect. Pellets bounced and skipped along ground, remaining lethal for extended distances. Technique proved particularly effective at night when visual observation was difficult. Marine defenders could fire at sound or movement at ground level, ricochet effect compensating for imprecise aim. 2. Sound and movement engagement. In jungle warfare, targets were often detected by sound or movement through vegetation rather than clear visual observation. Marines learned to fire at sound and movement rather than waiting for clear targets. Spread pattern compensated for imprecise aiming. If general direction was correct, some pellets would likely hit target. This represented fundamental shift from rifle marksmanship training, emphasizing precise aiming, clear target identification, to point shooting based on indicators rather than confirmed targets. 3. Overlapping fields of fire. Night defensive positions incorporated shotguns as primary weapon against infiltration, with overlapping field of fire covering likely approach routes. Multiple shotgun positions created zones where infiltration became virtually impossible. Any Japanese soldier attempting to penetrate defensive line would be engaged by multiple shotguns simultaneously. This created psychological effect beyond physical casualties. Japanese troops reported that attempting to penetrate American positions at night meant advancing into walls of bullets from multiple directions. 4. Ammunition management. Unlike rifle ammunition, lightweight, carried in bandoliers or cartridge belts, 100-plus rounds per Marine typical. Shotgun shells were bulky and heavy. Standard shotgun shell, approximately 2.75 inches long, 3/4 inch diameter, weighing approximately 1.5 ounces, 42 grams. Marines learned to carry shells in elastic loops on belts and bandoliers for rapid access. Standard load, 50 to 60 shells, approximately 5 to 6 pounds, plus 6 shells in weapon. Resupply was constant concern. Unlike riflemen who might carry several days' ammunition, shotgunners required frequent resupply and sustained combat. As Marine units gained experience through 1942 to 1943, employment of shotguns became more sophisticated. New Georgia Campaign, June-August 1943, saw several tactical innovations. Shotguns increasingly assigned to point men on jungle patrols. Marine infantry patrols in New Georgia's dense jungle moved in column formation, with point man 15 to 25 yards ahead of main body. Point man's role: detect enemy positions, ambushes, obstacles, provide early warning to main body. Point man was most vulnerable member patrol. First to encounter enemy, often engaged at very close range with minimal warning. Shotgun proved ideal point man weapon for several reasons. Immediate devastating firepower in response to sudden contact. Point man ambush at 10 to 20 yards could respond instantly with devastating fire, potentially hitting multiple ambushers with single shot spread pattern compensated for difficulty acquiring targets in dense vegetation. Point man might see only glimpse of movement through jungle, but shotgun blasts in that direction had high probability of hitting target psychological effect on Japanese forces. Japanese units learned to avoid ambushing patrols with shotgun-armed point men, as casualties were often severe before the rest of Japanese ambush force could engage. Ability to deliver immediate, devastating firepower in response to ambush proved invaluable. Combat statistics from 3rd Marine Division, New Georgia, July 1943 patrols with shotgun-armed point men suffered 30% fewer casualties in ambush situations compared to patrols with rifle-armed point men. This derived from 2 factors. 1. Shotgun's immediate suppressive effect forced Japanese ambushers to take cover rather than maintain aim fire. 2. Casualties inflicted on Japanese ambush forces reduced their ability to sustain ambush. Night defensive positions incorporated shotguns as primary weapon against infiltration. Japanese tactics in New Georgia emphasized night infiltration. Small groups, 5 to 15 soldiers, attempting to penetrate Marine lines in darkness, using stealth and blade weapons. Marines with shotguns could cover sectors with overlapping fields of fire, creating zones where infiltration became virtually impossible. Technique. Shotgun positions placed at 20 to 30-yard intervals around defensive perimeter, each position covering 60 to 90-degree sector. Result. Japanese infiltrators attempting to penetrate defensive line would enter at least one, often multiple, shotgun killing zones. Psychological effect. Distinctive sound of pump action being cycled became psychological deterrent. Japanese troops reported that hearing shotgun being readied at night induced fear response, as they knew weapons' devastating close-range capability. Jungle lane shooting. Clearing paths through dense vegetation. New Georgia's jungle terrain included areas of dense secondary growth where Japanese soldiers could hide within 5 to 10 feet of trails without being visible. Marines developed technique of firing shotgun blasts into suspected hiding places along trails. Spread pattern would strike multiple obstacles, potentially hitting concealed enemies, while simultaneously stripping away foliage that provided concealment. Technique was profligate with ammunition but effective. Vegetation stripped by repeated shotgun blasts revealed concealed positions, while psychological effect, knowledge that Marines were systematically clearing vegetation, discouraged Japanese troops from using close-range ambush positions. Campaign for Central Pacific Islands introduced new tactical challenge that would define rest of Pacific War. Japanese cave fortifications. Beginning with Tarawa, November 20th to 23rd, 1943, and escalating through subsequent operations. Japanese forces increasingly relied on fortified caves and bunkers rather than traditional defensive lines. Strategic shift arrived from lessons learned. Traditional defensive lines, even heavily fortified, proved vulnerable to American naval gunfire and aerial bombardment. American material superiority meant Japanese could not win artillery duels or open field battles. Cave fortifications provided protection from naval gunfire and air attack, while allowing Japanese forces to inflict maximum casualties on attacking American infantry. Tarawa demonstrated both effectiveness of cave defense and difficulty of reducing fortified positions. Japanese garrison, approximately 4,500 troops, held island for 76 hours against 18,000 Marines supported by massive naval gunfire and air bombardment. Marines suffered 3,407 casualties, 1,009 killed, 2,398 wounded, taking island of only 291 acres. Casualty ratio shocked American planners. Approximately 1,000 Marine casualties per square mile of island. Most casualties occurred not in landing or approach to fortifications, but in close-range combat required to eliminate individual defensive positions. At Peleliu, September 15 to November 27, 1944, Colonel Kunio Nakagawa had prepared an elaborate cave defense system that would test Model 12 shotgun to its limits. Peleliu's coral ridges, specifically Imerbergal Mountain, called Bloody Nose Ridge by Marines, were honeycombed with natural caves that Japanese engineers had expanded and fortified over several months. Defensive system characteristics. Natural caves enlarged to room-sized chambers. Multiple entrances or exits preventing entrapment. Connecting tunnels allowing Japanese troops to move between positions without exposure to fire. Firing ports cut through coral at angles preventing direct fire from assault forces. Interior chambers offset from entrances, limiting effective explosives and flamethrowers thrown/fired into openings. Living quarters, ammunition storage, water supplies within cave system. Ventilation shafts preventing death from smoke/fumes. Critical defense against flamethrower attack. These positions, designed to withstand naval bombardment and aerial attack, required intimate close-range combat to clear. 3-day pre-invasion naval bombardment, September 12th to 14th, fired approximately 3,800 tons of shells at island. Japanese reported bombardment was severe, but caused minimal casualties. Troops sheltered deep in caves or protected by tens of feet of coral rock. When Marines assaulted island September 15th, they discovered fortifications had survived largely intact. Reduction of these positions would require infantry assault at close range. Model 12 proved adaptable to cave warfare challenge. Marines developed techniques exploiting shotguns' characteristics specifically for cave combat. Standard approach involved firing 1 to 2 shells into cave entrance, allowing buckshot to ricochet off interior walls. Physics of ricochet in confined spaces. Buckshot pellets striking hardcore walls at oblique angles bounce rather than penetrating. Pellets maintain substantial velocity after bounce, still lethal after 2 to 3 ricochets. In confined cave chamber, typically 10 to 15 feet diameter, buckshot fired into entrance would ricochet multiple times off walls, floor, ceiling. Effect created what Marines described as a lead storm inside confined spaces. Single shotgun blasts into cave entrance could result in 9 pellets, each bouncing multiple times. Pellets traveled in unpredictable directions after ricochet. Japanese soldiers in cave chamber faced multiple projectiles from multiple directions simultaneously. Psychological effect often exceeded physical damage. Japanese soldiers who survived reported sound of ricocheting buckshot in caves was uniquely terrifying. Metallic shrieking/whining sound as pellets bounced off coral walls. Sound seemed to come from all directions simultaneously. Knowledge that there was no safe place in cave. Ricochet pellets struck from all angles. Marine Corps report on Paliliu operations noted, shotgun fire into cave openings proved effective both in inflicting casualties and forcing enemy evacuation. Ricochet effect in confined spaces multiplied weapons' effectiveness. Psychological impact appears to equal or exceed physical effect. Enemy often evacuated positions after shotgun fire even when casualties were light. Invasion of Saipan, June 15 to July 9, 1944, saw a continued evolution of shotgun tactics, with formalization of techniques developed through 2 years of combat. Japanese garrison, 31,000 troops under Lieutenant General Yoshitsugu Saito, prepared extensive fortifications learning from previous American assaults. Marine units had developed what they called shotgun teams, specialized groups tasked with close-range assault of fortified positions. Typical shotgun team composition. 2 shotgun-armed Marines, primary assault weapons, 1 bar gunner, suppressive fire, covering shotgunner's approach, 1 to 2 riflemen with grenades, supporting fire, grenade attacks on firing ports, sometimes 1 flamethrower operator for positions requiring fire attack. Teams operated as specialized assault elements. Bar gunner provided sustained automatic fire on cave/bunker openings, suppressing defensive fire. Shotgunners advanced under bar-covered positions adjacent to cave entrance. Grenades thrown into opening to stun/disable defenders. Shotgunners fired multiple rounds into opening immediately after grenade explosions. If necessary, flamethrower attack position. Riflemen cleared surrounding area, preventing Japanese reinforcement. Technique proved particularly effective against fortified positions for several reasons. Concentrated firepower focused on single position. Shotguns provided devastating close-range firepower without friendly fire risk. Bar gunner position at different angle. Pellets would not ricochet toward friendly positions. Multiple weapons types allowed adaptation to different defensive configurations. Small team size allowed tactical flexibility. Teams could operate independently or in coordination with larger infantry assault. July 7, 1944, Saipan saw largest Japanese banzai charge of Pacific War. Approximately 3,000 to 4,000 attackers, mixed army troops, naval infantry, Korean laborers armed with whatever weapons available, assaulting American positions. Assault launch 0400 hours, complete darkness, no moon, exactly as Japanese doctrine prescribed. Mass attack in darkness to close with enemy before American firepower could be fully brought to bear. While most casualties were inflicted by machine guns, water-cooled Brownings, firing from fixed positions with interlocking field of fire, and artillery, 105 mm and 155 mm howitzers firing pre-plotted defensive concentrations. Close-range fighting that penetrated American lines saw extensive use of all available weapons, including shotguns. Combat degraded to confuse melee and darkness. Japanese attackers breached American front lines at multiple points. Hand-to-hand combat with bayonets, rifle butts, knives, swords. American defensive positions overrun. Fighting moved to rear areas. Command and control broke down. Fighting devolved to small unit and individual actions. In this environment, shotgun's ability to deliver multiple projectiles without precise aiming proved valuable. Marine firing shotgun in darkness at 10 to 15 yards at mass attacking Japanese infantry did not need to identify individual targets or aim precisely. Point weapon and direction of attack. Fire repeatedly using slam fire. Spread pattern at close range. Ensured hits even without precise aim. Psychological effect of being hit by multiple pellets increased shock value, potentially stopping attackers who might have continued advance despite single rifle bullet wound. Casualty statistics. Japanese attackers, approximately 4,000 killed, nearly 100% casualties. Assault was suicide mission by design, intended to inflict maximum casualties on Americans before Japanese garrisons' inevitable defeat. American defenders, approximately 400 killed, 500 wounded in banzai charge. While majority of American casualties inflicted by attackers who had closed a hand-to-hand range, shotguns prevented many more penetrations by stopping attackers at 10 to 30-yard range before they reached defensive positions. Battle for Iwo Jima, February 19 to March 26, 1945, presented ultimate test of cave warfare tactics. General Tadamaki Kurabayashi had created most sophisticated defensive system of Pacific War. 11 miles of tunnel connecting over 1,500 caves, pillboxes, and fortified positions. Entire island transformed into fortress. Virtually no open defensive positions. Everything underground or heavily fortified. Kurabayashi had studied American tactics from previous battles, Tarawa, Saipan, Peleliu, and designed defenses specifically to counter them. Counter-bombardment. Deep positions immune to naval gunfire and aerial bombing. Counter-flamethrower. Cave entrances angled to prevent direct fire into interior. Ventilation systems preventing death from smoke/fumes. Multiple exits allowing evacuation. Counter-demolitions. Interior chambers offset from entrances, limiting blast effect. Reinforced walls resistant to explosive charges. Counter-assault. Firing ports at ground level making grenade attacks difficult. Interlocking field of fire allowing mutual support between positions. Hidden positions providing flank fire on attackers. Despite these preparations, Model 12 shotguns remain effective through tactical adaptation. Marines developed skip shooting, deliberately banking buckshot off tunnel walls to reach around corners. Technique exploited ricochet effect. Shotgunner fire at oblique angle into tunnel. Pellets bounce off walls at predictable angles. With practice, Marines learned to estimate angles required to ricochet pellets around corners, hitting Japanese defenders in positions not visible from firing point. Technique required substantial ammunition expenditure. Might require 10 to 20 rounds to clear a short tunnel section, but reduce casualties by allowing Marines to engage defenders without exposing themselves to direct fire. Increased use of white phosphorus shells, WP, which created both casualties and smoke, forcing Japanese soldiers to evacuate positions. White phosphorus ignites on contact with air, burning at 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 2,760 degrees Celsius. WP particles stick to skin and continue burning. Smoke from WP is dense and causes severe respiratory distress. When fired into cave/tunnel, WP created multiple effects. Direct casualties from burning particle smoke filling confined space, forcing evacuation psychological terror from burning effect continued burning, providing illumination in dark spaces. Marines developed technique of firing 2 to 3 WP shells into cave entrance, followed by multiple buckshot rounds as defenders evacuated choking/burning. 21,000 Japanese defenders gradually eliminated in brutal close-range fighting. Of 21,000 defenders, only 216 were taken prisoner, most wounded or unconscious when captured. Nearly 100% casualty rate reflected both Japanese determination to fight to death in nature cave warfare. Defenders deep in fortifications could not surrender even if they wanted to, as access was blocked by attacking Marines. Average advance, 500 feet per day across 8-square-mile island. Each cave, each bunker, each tunnel required individual reduction through close-range assault. Nature of fighting at Iwo Jima, with emphasis on eliminating fortified positions at close range, highlighted continued relevance of weapons like Model 12 despite overall mechanization of warfare. Modern technology, aircraft, naval gunfire, tanks, artillery, could not win battle alone. Ultimate decision required infantry closing with enemy at ranges measured in feet, using weapons designed for intimate combat. Actual production and distribution of Model 12 shotguns tells different story from popular perception. According to Winchester Company records analyzed by historian Herbert G. Howes, only 61,014 Model 12 shotguns were manufactured during World War II, 1941 to 1945. Additional 19,277 were repaired or refurbished by Winchester, leading to confusion about total numbers. Some sources cite 80,000 plus shotguns combining new production and refurbishment, technically accurate but misleading. These weapons were distributed across all service branches. U.S. Marine Corps, largest allocation, approximately 40 to 45% production. U.S. Army, substantial allocation, approximately 35 to 40%. U.S. Navy, smaller allocation, approximately 10 to 15%. Army Air Forces, smallest allocation, approximately 5 to 10%. Distribution was not exclusively to Marine units. Contrary to popular belief, Army Air Forces used Model 12s for air-based defense. Aircraft guard duties Navy employed them for ship security. Landing party operations Army assigned them to security detachments, military police, prisoner guards. There's relatively limited production. 61,014 new weapons for military 12 million personnel. Meant Model 12s were specialized weapons rather than general issue. For comparison, M1 Garand rifle. Approximately 5.4 million produced during World War II M1 carbine. Approximately 6.2 million produced M1903 Springfield rifle. Approximately 1.4 million in service. Many from World War I production. Browning automatic rifle. Bar approximately 350,000 produced Thompson submachine gun. Approximately 1.5 million produced M3 grease gun submachine gun. Approximately 700,000 produced Winchester Model 12. 61,014 produced. Less than 1% of total small arms production. Weapons were concentrated in units expected to face close combat. Marine rifle companies, infantry battalions, Army assault teams, engineer units, ranger battalions, security detachments, rear area security, prisoner guard, point defense positions, airfields, supply depots, headquarters. Within these units, shotguns typically issued at rate of 1 to 2 shotguns per rifle squad, 12 to 13 man unit, 8 to 12 shotguns per rifle platoon, 40 to 45 man unit, 30 to 50 shotguns per rifle company, 200 to 250 man unit. This meant approximately 80 to 90% of Marine/soldiers were armed with rifles Garand, Springfield, carbine, with shotguns issued to personnel in positions where close-range combat was most likely point men, security guards, assault teams. While shotgun production was limited, ammunition supply was more abundant. Military contract for shotgun shells ran into millions of rounds. Exact production figures remain classified or lost, but evidence suggests 10 to 15 million rounds of 00 buckshot produced 1941-19452-3 million rounds of slug ammunition, 1-2 million rounds of smaller shot sizes, birdshot, etc. Standard military load was 00 buckshot, with slug rounds and smaller shot sizes available for specific purposes. Logistics of shotgun ammunition. Each round approximately 2.75 inches long, 3/4 inch diameter, weighing 1.5 ounces packed in cardboard boxes of 25 rounds, weighing approximately 2.5 pounds per box shipped in wooden cases of 10 boxes, 250 rounds, weighing approximately 30 pounds per case. Compared to rifle ammunition, .30-06 rifle cartridge for M1 Garand, M1903 Springfield 3.34 inches long, 0.473 inch diameter, weighing approximately 0.5 ounces packed in bandoliers of 48 rounds, weighing approximately 2 pounds per bandolier, or an 8-round end block clip for Garand. Shotgun shells were approximately 3 times heavier per round than rifle ammunition and bulkier, making logistics more challenging. This created interesting supply situation. Units equipped with shotguns required special ammunition allocation. Shotgun ammunition could not be shared with other weapons. Unlike .30-06 ammunition used in multiple weapons, resupply priority was sometimes lower than rifle/machine gun ammunition in sustained combat. Shotgun-armed personnel might run low on ammunition, while rifle-armed personnel still had adequate supply. Marines developed practice of carrying extra ammunition for specialized weapons. Riflemen in same squad as shotgunner often carried 10 to 20 extra shotgun shells in addition to their own rifle ammunition. This distributed load across squad and ensured shotgun had access to resupply without requiring dedicated ammunition bearer. Evaluating Model 12's actual combat effectiveness requires careful analysis of available evidence. After-action reports from Pacific battles consistently note value of shotguns in specific situations while acknowledging limitations. Weapons excelled in several scenarios consistently reported across different battles. 1. Jungle ambush response. Ability to deliver immediate devastating firepower in response to sudden contact at close range. Spread pattern compensated for difficulty of acquiring targets in dense vegetation. Marine walking point could respond to ambush with instant suppressive fire, potentially hitting multiple enemies with single shot. 2. Night defense. Shotguns provided effective defense against infiltration attempts. Sound of pump action being cycled became psychological deterrent. Spread pattern increased hit probability in darkness when precise aiming was impossible. 3. Cave and bunker clearing. Ricochet effect in confined spaces multiplied weapons effectiveness. Even when direct hits not achieved, psychological impact of buckshot ricocheting in enclosed spaces often forced Japanese soldiers to evacuate positions. 4. Final assault phases. When combat closed or ranges under 25 yards, shotguns provided superior firepower to bolt-action rifles and even some automatic weapons. Volume of fire, 54 pellets in 3 seconds, exceeded what most other weapons could deliver at close range. However, weapons had clear limitations acknowledged in official reports. 1. Range limitation. Effective range of 40 to 50 yards, occasionally 60 to 70 yards with slug ammunition, meant shotgun-armed troops vulnerable to rifle fire at longer ranges. In open terrain, Japanese riflemen could engage shotgunners beyond shotgun effective range. 2. Ammunition logistics. Bulky, heavy ammunition complicated supply operations. Shotgunner in sustained combat required frequent resupply compared to riflemen. 3. Maintenance requirements. Weapons required frequent cleaning in corrosive salt-air environment of Pacific. Pump action mechanism with multiple moving parts prone to jamming if fouled with sand, mud, or debris. Daily maintenance essential, sometimes multiple times daily in harsh conditions. 4. Limited penetration. Buckshot pellets lack penetration against fortifications. Japanese bunkers with firing ports cut through coral or concrete immune to shotgun fire. Slug ammunition provided better penetration, but at reduced rate of fire and loss of spread pattern advantage. 5. Friendly fire considerations. Spread pattern that made shotgun effective could also endanger friendly forces if engagement angles not carefully considered. Ricocheting pellets in caves could hit friendly forces if multiple assault teams working same position from different angles. German protests of 1918 regarding shotgun use created legal precedent that influenced World War II employment. American rejection of German protests established that shotguns were legitimate weapons of war under international law. Interestingly, despite Model 12's effectiveness against Japanese forces, Japan never filed similar protests. This absence may reflect several factors. 1. Japan's own conduct. Japan's actions in China, Nanjing Massacre, biological warfare experiments, treatment of prisoners, had violated numerous international conventions. Filing protests about American shotgun use while conducting far worse violations would have been hypocritical. 2. Deteriorating diplomatic situation. By time shotguns proved particularly effective, 1943 to 1944, diplomatic channels between Japan and United States barely functioned. Switzerland maintained some communication channels, but these were limited. 3. Japan already losing. By 1944, Japan was already losing war decisively. Legal protests were irrelevant when facing defeat. 4. Cultural factors. Japanese military culture emphasized accepting battlefield realities rather than complaining about enemy weapons. Weapons that killed efficiently were respected, not protested. Legal acceptance of shotguns as legitimate weapons contrasted with restrictions on other weapons. Poison gas. Banned after World War I. Not used in Pacific despite tactical advantages it might have provided in cave warfare. Both sides feared retaliation and international condemnation. Biological weapons. Japan used biological weapons in China, but not against American forces, fearing retaliation, including possible use against Japanese home islands. Shotgun, despite devastating close-range effects, remained within accepted bounds of warfare. Modern military law perspective. Shotguns continue to be legal for military use under Geneva Conventions and contemporary law of armed conflict. No serious challenges to shotgun legality since German protest of 1918. Shotguns widely used by military and law enforcement worldwide for close-quarters combat. Model 12 and its descendants, Remington 870, Mossberg 500, Benelli M4, remain standard military equipment 80-plus years later. Marine Corps developed specific training programs for shotgun employment based on combat experience. Scout Sniper School at Camp Lejeune included shotgun training, though exact curriculum from World War II has not survived in detail. Training emphasized several key principles derived from combat experience. 1. Ammunition management. Unlike rifle ammunition, shotgun shells bulky and heavy Marines learned to carry shells in elastic loops on belts and bandoliers for rapid access standard load. 50 to 60 shells, 6 in weapon plus 44 to 54 on person. Resupply constant concern. Plan for more frequent resupply than riflemen. 2. Shooting positions. Pump action required different stances and rifle shooter Marines practice firing from hip during movement, point shooting without using sights, maintaining balance while cycling action rapidly proper pump technique, sharp rearward stroke, Rapid forward stroke, maintaining muzzle on target slam fire technique, holding trigger down. Cycling action rhythmically. 3. Target selection. Shotgunners learn to engage closest threats first sweep across multiple targets rather than focusing on individual spread pattern meant precise aiming less important than rapid target engagement in darkness or dense vegetation. Fire at sound/movement rather than confirmed visual target. 4. Weapon maintenance. Pacific environment particularly hard on weapons. Salt spray, sand, humidity. Model 12 could quickly become inoperable if fouled daily maintenance essential. Clean bore, clean action. Lubricate moving parts field stripping procedures simplified for rapid cleaning under field conditions emphasis on keeping action clean and lubricated. 5. Tactical employment. Role as close-range weapon, not substitute for rifle coordination with rifle-armed squad members shotgun advances under covering fire, then provide suppressive fire for others' communication with squad about ammunition status. Positioning to maximize fields of fire while minimizing friendly fire risk. Winchester Model 12's employment in Pacific War demonstrated both American military adaptability and industrial capability. Its slam fire capability provided devastating close-range firepower Japanese forces struggled to counter. However, Model 12's impact must be understood within proper context. Only 61,014 produced during World War II, making it specialized weapon rather than primary infantry arm. Effectiveness depended on integration with other weapons in combined arms tactics. Pacific War's outcome was determined by strategic factors far beyond tactical weapons. Japanese military's failure to anticipate or counter American shotgun employment reflected broader miscalculations about American military capabilities. Japanese doctrine emphasized spiritual factors and individual warrior skills, underestimated American material superiority and tactical innovation, failed to adapt to realities of industrial warfare. Model 12, simple in design but devastating in application, embodied pragmatic American approach to warfare. From Guadalcanal to Okinawa, through jungles and caves, distinctive sound of pump action, cycling marked American tactical innovation. Marines and soldiers armed with Model 12s demonstrated that industrial democracy could develop and employ specialized weapons for specific tactical challenges. Weapon that Germany had protested as inhumane proved to be simply another tool in American arsenal. Model 12's legacy extends beyond World War II. Korea, 1950 to 1953 Model 12 served again, proving effective in close combat and night fighting, particularly against Chinese mass infantry attacks. Vietnam, 1964 to 1975 shotguns, employed by point men on patrols and for tunnel clearing operations, directly applying lessons learned in Pacific. Modern conflicts. Shotguns remain standard military equipment for close quarters combat, breaching operations, less lethal applications. Tactical innovations developed in Pacific influence American military doctrine through subsequent conflicts. Emphasis on close combat firepower, specialized weapons for specific situations. User-driven tactical innovation, bottom-up development rather than top-down doctrine. Integration of multiple weapon types in combined arms approach. Model 12's mechanical design influenced subsequent military shotguns. Pump-action mechanism proved more reliable in combat conditions than semi-automatic design slam fire capability, while eventually eliminated for safety reasons in civilian models. Remained value for military application simplicity and ruggedness became design priorities for military shotguns. Japanese infantry never expected Winchester M12 trench guns to slam fire through their defenses because such weapons violated their fundamental assumptions about warfare. Japanese doctrine held that spirit would defeat material night combat would negate American firepower advantages. Close combat would favor Japanese training and determination. Model 12 delivered simple message. American forces would apply overwhelming firepower at every range using every available technology adapted through continuous innovation. In brutal arithmetic of Pacific combat, Model 12 added its weight to scales of American victory. Transformation was complete not through Model 12 alone, but through what it represented. American willingness to embrace any effective weapon, develop innovative tactics, apply industrial production to tactical problems, systematically apply firepower to destroy any defense, overcome any obstacle, achieve victory, to material superiority combined with tactical innovation. Japanese infantry who faced these weapons discovered their opponents had mastered not just our war, but science of systematically applying firepower. The weapon Germany tried to ban in 1918 became one of many tools Americans brought to Pacific in 1942 to 1945. Simple pump-action shotgun, designed for hunting birds, Transformed into devastating close-range combat weapon that help win island-by-island campaign across Pacific. 54 projectiles in 3 seconds. Metallic shrieking of ricocheting buckshot in caves. Distinctive sound of pump action, cycling in darkness. Winchester Model 12. Weapon Japan never expected. Weapon Germany tried to ban. Weapon that helped win Pacific War.